All right, coming to the stage, Mr. Bill Weihl.
Good afternoon. So we're going to do something a little bit different. Got a panel here, no PowerPoint slides, so I hope that's good. We're not going to do the wave. You just did that, so you should all be awake, right? So we're going to talk about renewable energy. We actually had a panel a year ago talking about renewable energy, and that was with several company representatives, and this year we're doing it a little bit differently. I'm moderating. I'm Bill Weihl, Director of Sustainability at Facebook, and we've got three panelists here with me, representatives from different nonprofits. Eric Olson in the middle is from Business for Social Responsibility. Alex Pereira, right next to me, is from the World Resources Institute, and Hervé Touati is from the Rocky Mountain Institute. So some of you may know that some companies are interested in renewable energy. I hope some of you are from companies that are interested. But there's been a lot of change in the last year, especially. So we're going to tell you about some of what we've observed and what ways in which you can get engaged. So maybe we can start, Eric, if you could sort of set the stage for us a bit, talk a little bit about the trends that have been happening in the renewable energy space, especially around corporations.
Great, happy to do that, Bill, and thanks for having me here today. This subject, renewable energy, the buying of renewable energy, is one I think is fair to say, well, depending on where you are, it's still exotic today, but it was really exotic not that many years ago. And our organization happens to do broader energy and sustainability work with a large number of companies, mostly multinationals. Everyone's been working on efficiency for years. And for a very long time, you'd sort of see the token renewable project as sort of the trophy on top of it. We've done some good energy work, and we're a good company because we put a few solar panels on the roof of our building. Hooray. And then the operations guys get you a loan and say, yeah, you know, we did that for the sustainability guys, but it doesn't matter, and they don't actually work, and so on. So this is for quite a long time, and unfortunately, that really set the reputation of these kinds of efforts, I think, for a long time. Well, the best intro I can give is to say this has changed really dramatically, and almost every company that we work with across energy industries themselves, fossil fuel companies, retailing, manufacturing, is taking a serious look at a renewable power strategy, not principally or only because it makes them look like a good company, but because they believe and understand that this is part of a portfolio that they need to address the uncertainty in power markets, future pricing, quality energy and things. So that, to me, is the biggest thing we've seen change. And you've seen in the papers some of the big deals, big on-site installations from great companies in this area. There are many, many more doing less dramatic but still important things. You may not know, for example, that Walmart, of all companies, has an articulated corporate goal to be 100% powered by renewable energy. And they've gotten more than a quarter of the way there in 5 years.
And Walmart's not known for spending money just to spend money.
Exactly right. So, so what we're seeing is a huge upswelling of activity, much more practical-minded than some of the earlier waves that might have been riding policy or a green fad. This is serious business and moving pretty quickly. I think I'll leave it there for now.
So Hervé, could you tell us a little bit about what are the kinds of approaches that people are following? Give us some examples and a little bit about what's happening.
I think historically, basically, companies started to get involved by very short-term deals, buying renewable energy credits on a 1 or 2 year time horizon. What we have seen in recent years is a move towards investments into wind or solar PV farms that engage companies on a longer term horizon, 10 to 20 years. And we see participation either on the investment side or on the off-taker side or on both. So if you look at recent announcements, companies like Apple, Kaiser Permanente, or General Motors, to name 3, announced in the past few weeks significant deals of that nature where they actually buy the energy from basically project developers. And this is playing a much more active role in the renewable space, and also it actually brings the strength of these companies towards new projects being developed. So you may have heard the term of additionality. Here we are talking about investments from corporations that actually change the landscape, that brings more wind turbines, more PV panels being installed in large farms. So I think this is a very significant improvement and a very significant participation. You may, of course, wonder what your role could be there, and this development is by no means simple compared to buying electricity from your local utility, but it has become indeed, as Eric mentioned, much easier in recent years. So if you are interested in participating today, you can achieve that without having the requirement of hiring a team of 30 people, right? You can do that in much simpler ways today, and we are happy to talk to you about that later on today.
Great. So Alex, maybe you could tell people a little bit about what some of the challenges are. I mean, it's not as easy as buying energy from your local utility yet. So maybe talk a little bit about what some of the challenges are, and then we can talk in a few minutes about some of the solutions.
Right, so I don't want to throw cold water on all the excitement about renewable energy, so I'll try not to do that. I'll tread lightly here, but it is important to know, yes, we're seeing incredible momentum with opportunities around renewable energy. Walmart was mentioned. Walmart has actually saved $1 billion with their renewable energy purchasing. So that's actually real money there. So this is a real opportunity. However, we don't yet have the market alignment needed to really get to scale. What do I mean by that? You can go so far doing on-site renewables, right? Big box retailers, about 30% your energy can come from on-site. Data centers, maybe it's 1% can come from on-site. So you have to use the grid. You have to have alignment between your electric utility, your procurement, and regulation. And currently, we don't have that alignment quite yet. Utilities don't see this as an opportunity, although they should. And some of the utilities, some of the leading utilities are starting to get that customers want to buy renewables, that this is an economic development opportunity for them, that they can make money. And I don't know if you've kept up with the news, but utilities are actually financially distressed in this country. They're looking for new revenue models. So it's actually quite powerful to have more demand from customers for renewables. That could be a business opportunity for them. We need to help them understand that, and they don't quite yet. We need to simplify the transaction. Yes, we have very good examples of where renewables can be sourced cost effectively, but they're still complex. How do we get those transactions simpler, more replicable, and easier for companies to replicate and do? That's a way we're going to get to scale. And thirdly, even in some cases where you do have a willing utility and a buyer, you have electricity regulation that is at odds with allowing that transaction to take off. We need to work with electricity regulators, get them excited, say, look, this is actually a real opportunity. This is a win-win between customers, utilities, and all consumers on the grid if we do this right. We need to update electricity regulation so that it allows these kinds of transactions that are more transformative to really take off and scale. So just a few easy things to do, and we'll be off to the races.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about how companies are actually, Hervé had to step out, I hope he'll be back in a minute, how companies are actually addressing some of those challenges. So maybe dig a little deeper, if each of you could, and I can chime in as well. What are some of the things that companies have been doing? Because it's not yet something where you can walk into your Walmart and say to your utility, so to speak, I'd like to buy some green energy, but rather, these deals are complicated. How are companies approaching that? What are some of the deal structures? Go ahead and start.
Sure. So you're seeing a range of deal structures depending on, and it's going to vary by customer type. And the fact of the matter, there's a lot of innovation in this space. More importantly, there's some emerging work to really galvanize the buyers. Okay? So I brought a prop to show you all.
It's paper.
It's
Just to be clear,
paper.
it's not electronic.
It's not
but
electronic.
It is available
Do you guys know
electronically.
what this is? It's paper. So this is 25 companies have committed to the Renewable Energy Buyers Principles. These are very clear principles of how companies are interested in buying renewables that are a more meaningful transaction, results in new renewables on the grid, results in price benefits to all consumers. These are very simple principles, but now the fact that we've got 25 companies all saying, yeah, we can commit to these. Utilities are starting to pay attention, and they're saying, hey, this is an opportunity for us. We'd like to work with this coalition of companies. Let's think about how we can collaborate with this market segment. What are the market development, economic development opportunities for us? So this is a very powerful tool to get that market alignment that I talked about. And utilities are starting to take notice, and they're really starting to pay attention to how do we work and engage in a more proactive way with our customers on something that is really a win-win solution for everybody. I mean, if we can access renewables as the most affordable option and reduce pricing risk on the grid, that's great. It's great for the environment, it's great for customers, it's great for the utility. So this is a very powerful movement, and I'd be happy to talk with any of you about what it takes to sign on to these if you're interested and get additional logos. And this is a multi-sectoral effort to get a large group and sector-wide representation on this. But something like this is something that can really align markets to get more of these purchasing opportunities and business models to scale.
So the only thing I would add to that is there are, for those of you who don't spend your days thinking about renewable energy, there's also emerged a pretty wide range of tools, mechanisms for financing and for implementation of this that make it a lot more accessible to companies that don't happen to have the scale and brilliance of Facebook, for example. There are forward power purchase agreements. There are virtual power purchase agreements. So companies without a good local energy setup can participate and get into some deals which can be financially attractive and also make a contribution to the development of a better energy picture over time. So not everyone by any means that we're working with is doing the big bang, we're going to take over a wind farm kind of deal. They have a pretty normal average. Unilever's maybe a good example to bring up, where they've got a really wide portfolio of things that almost any company would need to think of, but they're seeing real advantage to engaging their primary utility and other partners in some ambitious goal setting and development on the renewables side, because they see that in turn enabling them to reduce price volatility and get some other things done, both operationally and from a marketing point of view. So the barrier has come down a lot. I think the other way that companies are tackling this in a way that's more practical is working together. And one of the things we might get into in Q&A, or I'd be happy to talk about later, is one collaboration, and there are many, one that we do with some of the world's biggest data center operators called the Future of Internet Power. It's got Facebook, HP, eBay, other companies in it. And one of the functions here, there's barriers that need to come down in a lot of ways, and Alex called out some of them. Financing. Another one is just getting the kind of policy and supplier engagement you need to make this work. Very hard for any company, even a Facebook or Google or whatnot, to get that kind of attention for utility. However, when you get 6, 12, 18 major data center operators together, the ability for them to knock down some of these barriers, get more attention, and accelerate goes way up. So that's the other way to think about making progress without literally betting the farm in the first year.
Well, and several of you mentioned the financial side, and I think that is something that's a huge shift in especially the last couple of years, but over the last 5 to 10, we've seen the costs of wind and solar come down dramatically, to the point where in many places today, certainly on-site solar is cheaper than grid power if you're net metering in many locations. And off-site wind in some areas of this country is cheaper than existing grid power, which I think has totally changed the, whereas 5 years ago, maybe people were doing these kinds of things because they felt it was important for the environment, it was good for their brand. Right. Today, it's good for their bottom line. And I think that's something that's increasingly true for more and more companies. So, Alex, you mentioned the corporate renewable energy buyers principles, which I think has been an awesome collaboration. My own experience with it, we get asked, as I'm sure many of you do at other companies, to sign on to various letters, statements of principles, and so on all the time. Many of them, they're often certainly well-meaning and headed in the right direction, but their actual impact is often small. My experience with these principles has been this is something that has actually been used to drive action and drive change. That, as you said, regulators and utilities, the reaction has often been, oh, we had no idea that so many companies cared about this. And once you have, a few companies in the room with 20 plus others, on the sheet, basically backing the same principles. You have a few companies talking to them with the backing of a bunch of others. It's a very, very different conversation and things start to happen. I think of this and the broader collaboration that's going on here, it's kind of like the open compute for clean energy. And in fact, it's sort of remarkable. Eric, maybe you could talk a little bit about the broader coalition of not just these companies, but also several NGOs that are working together.
So there's a couple of the themes we brought up that you should remember around which this collaboration has taken place are what Alex, I think, called out nicely in terms of challenges. We all doing this work, in some cases for many years, looked at it and said, what needs to happen? Well, number one, the complexity and cost of doing this has got to go down. It is complicated, has been, and that needs to be addressed. Number two, we need more volume, we need more scale. We need more support to get these things done. So as our different organizations, so this World Resources Institute, BSR, Rocky Mountain Institute, and also the World Wildlife Fund, each of us has had programs aimed broadly or at specific slices of this problem for years, and the thought was, we're asking our company partners and people to collaborate, what could we do to take some of the complexity both out of standards, definitions, approaches, but also some of the tools. So the idea of our coming together, we call ourselves, I think loosely at this point, the Corporate Renewables Partnership. I don't think we better run down to the trademark office. I don't know if that's protected. Pretty generic. But the idea is that collectively we've got decades of experience. We have, each organization has different corporate partnership programs. We've got a lot of your customers in our memberships, as well as a number of you. And we're looking to serve as a source where people can bring desire, opportunity, and we, across our organizations as well as others, can point you to the best expertise, the best solution. We don't want to be parochial about it. We're all pretty consistently motivated by scaling this in a big way. Yeah. So that's, I don't know if that answered your question, Bill, but that's the real motivation, is that it's hard enough. Why don't we create a resource where people can go and get answers efficiently from people who know what they're talking about and start moving in a similar direction?
Yeah, just a quick point to add is that a lot of these NGOs, WRI, BSR, RMI, have been working in partnership with the private sector for a decade and more. And these kinds of private, public-private partnerships, the public being NGOs, so NGO private partnerships, are really powerful. And this is really how we can get to scale. We can change the market, and we have examples of how we've been able to do this. So looking at your energy challenges and your data centers and thinking about navigating the opportunities, you're not doing this alone. I mean, there are resources to help you, and you can tap into the resources that we offer, and we can help you navigate this, both in the U.S. Also, WRI is doing a lot of work in India. So if you have facilities in Bangalore or in Chennai, we've got an active program in those cities, and we can help navigate the renewable energy market there. So this is both a U.S. and international effort. But these partnerships can be a really powerful resource for change. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking to do, is how do we make renewables more cost effective for you all and get more renewables deployed in the most affordable way in the market. And that's a great goal to have.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and I think that scale is really the issue. You know, a few solar panels on everyone's roofs, it's a good thing, but we need, certainly if we want to deal with the environmental challenges facing the world, we need renewable energy at much, much greater scale than that. Companies like the ones represented here have the opportunity to move markets in a way that individual consumers can't, and I think collectively we're able to move them much more. Let's talk just a little bit then about, you know, specifically if people wanted to get engaged, if they're interested in renewable energy for their company, if they want help, who should they talk to? What should they do? Maybe walk through some of the, whether it's the principles or the RMI Business Renewable Center, maybe one of you can speak to that just a little bit, sort of walk through the opportunities that are available.
Great. Well, I mean, immediately, both Eric and I I think Bill will be out at a table by the windows. I guess we have to pick a table.
Yeah.
We'll
So in the entry to the expo area, so right before you go into the expo area, there's some windows on the right. We'll be over in that area. So after the sessions today, you want to come find us. We're happy to drink a glass of wine or beer with you and talk about this more.
Yeah. And then, you know, then we can sort of talk about, you know, what it takes to sign on to the principles, the information that might be needed, some of the BSR's programs, RMI's programs, et cetera. And so that could be a good first step.
Yeah, I would say it really depends on what you're trying to do. We have resources. In BSR's case, we have a membership. Your company may already be a member. Whether or not you are, the idea behind this is, you know, each 4 of our organizations is an entry point to a conversation in which our interest is going to be to get you the answers, possibly participate in a program. I don't, you know, I think that only makes sense when it makes sense. But we should be able to navigate you pretty quickly to the part of the network that's going to be most valuable. And that ranges from a couple things. Certainly the RMI Business Renewables Center, they've got a real depth of expertise in some of the hairier parts of the technical transactions. These transactions can be very messy, not messy, complicated is a better word, maybe messy.
They keep lawyers and accountants employed.
Right. Armies of them. But you know, there's a lot of expertise available to deal with that. Where my organization probably spends more of its time is saying, how do we take that renewable energy strategy and make it work in the context of overall greening of operations, a broader corporate sustainability commitment. On the buy side, on the sell side, we're working with a lot of OEMs here in the Valley who are very excited about positioning their products as part of the answer to energy problems, climate change, and other things. And that has elevated it from a pure operational issue to a marketing issue as well. How can I be out selling super efficient servers and services that, you know, with at least a minor tagline saying we're making the world a better place, if I don't have a handle on what my back office is burning? So a lot of engagement and can point you to some of your peers and other companies doing work on how to bring efficiency and green forward into enterprise customer conversations and things like that. So we're out sort of more on the general coalition business building side of this. Yeah. And then you might want to say a little bit of specifically the principles and how and the tools that companies can use.
So, you know, the principles is really about how do we have a very proactive conversation with the electric utilities and with the regulators to get the alignment. So taking the strategies that, you know, BSR and RMI have been developing at the company and the sector level, and then sort of amplifying that by getting the utilities to come to the table, develop offerings and solutions that help scale these strategies up, get the regulatory framework right so that these transactions can be replicated across states. So it's a very powerful combination of actors here and a really powerful coalition that can get at both the transactions, scaling it inside the company and within a sector, and then scaling it to the other parties in the supply chain, the utilities and the regulators, so that we're all pulling in the same direction so that we can all benefit from the incredible decline in cost of renewable energy.
Yep, awesome. The other thing I would mention maybe about the principles is if you're a company that's interested in renewable energy, that is considering setting goals, maybe you have set goals or you're afraid to because you don't know how you'd meet them, but you haven't done much yet, sign the principles, because that adds your voice to this collective collaboration, this coalition, who together are going to utilities, to governors, to regulators, to legislators, with this message that we want renewables and we want to work with them to figure out how to make that work in that region, in that state. And that doesn't mean that you then have to go travel to all of these different places. In fact, one of the great benefits of this collaboration is for each of the states that we've engaged in, and there have already been several, 4 or 5 companies typically go and talk to the utility or the regulators. And it doesn't require everyone who's signed on to go talk, be involved in all these conversations, but having more voices makes clear to the policymakers and the utilities that this is something that matters to a lot of companies. And everyone wants jobs. And so they're, particularly in states in this country, they think about it from an economic development angle. If they want our business, this is the kind of thing they need to support to make it more likely they'll get our business. So I'd encourage you to seriously consider, even if you're not sure how to approach this stuff, to consider signing on simply as a statement that you want renewable energy and that these principles make sense. We're happy to take some questions. If we can bring the lights up a little bit. There, I think, are 3 mics in the aisles if people want to use the mics. We can keep talking, not past our time, but to the end. But if you have questions, please come to the mics and ask them. And while we're waiting for that, and if you don't have questions, we'll just keep going. So,
Looks like we got one.
it looks like someone's coming up. Okay. Yes, sir. Is the mic on? Try speaking into it again.
Hello?
Yeah, there you go.
So for the utilities, how big of a deal it is to, get power for the data center? I mean, I saw Apple's data center was like 60,000 homes. It's almost like a new city, right? So if utility, even if it agrees, how much time would it take for them to build the substation or whatever facility they need to build?
I should probably take that one. It's absolutely the case if you're going to build a big new data center that's got tens of megawatts of load. It's not a toaster you can just go plug into, an outlet on the grid. That quite often there will need to be a new substation. There may need to be other grid upgrades, and that does take time. That's something when you're choosing a site, you negotiate with the utility and others involved in that region. Typically, what I've seen is that the time for that is usually not longer than the time for the other things that need to happen to build a data center. You need to secure the site, and you need to deal with other utilities, not just electricity, but perhaps water. You need to secure permits for all sorts of things. You need to actually build the building and commission it. And the grid upgrade, substation, et cetera, that need to happen can happen in that time. And that's just typical if you're building a data center, that you have to do that. The renewable energy piece, if you go to the utility and say, and by the way, we want renewable energy, that's something many of them don't quite know what to do with, and part of this collaboration has been educating them about the fact that there are lots of companies that want it, and there's actually a business opportunity for them, which is getting them, I think, a little more interested in stepping up and trying to figure out collectively with us how to make that happen. Any other questions?
I think
Yeah.
just to add to that point, with data centers, when you're talking about having the utility add new load, that's where you have an opportunity to have the most creative conversation with the utility, right? Because they're not so worried about, oh, I'm going to have to back down my existing generation that I've already built. This is about what can I build new, and then it's really a blank slate. So actually, for sectors that are really growing, you're nicely positioned to have really good, proactive, creative conversations with the utility to come up with thoughtful new solutions.
Yeah, and utilities make money typically in this country by building infrastructure and getting a return on that capital investment. Building a wind farm is a great opportunity for them to make money. So with new load, if they can build new generation to serve it, then they're often very happy. So let's take one more over here, and then we'll go over here.
I guess two questions. One, it seems to me the incremental cost is still higher, so that the companies will have to absorb it until the time when the price comes down. Is that true or not true?
I mean, it goes market by market, but there are more states than not where there are examples of renewables actually being the most affordable option. I mean, even in Minnesota, just this past winter, they did the utility looked at resources to meet new load, and not even under the renewable energy obligation, okay, they picked a solar project because it was the cheapest resource for the utility. So not even because they were obligated to buy renewables, they just economics to economics, they went with solar, it was cheaper than new natural.
This is in Minnesota, which is
Not
north,
the sunniest
correct?
state.
That's true without subsidy?
Well, do you have an hour to talk about that question? I mean, the subsidies, everybody's getting subsidies, so to back that out for everybody it gets complex, but that is factoring in, you know, current incentives and subsidies.
So it's
Yeah.
still truly not competitive.
I think there are parts of this country where some technologies are competitive without subsidies. The subsidies are expected to decline over the next few years, but the price is still coming down. The raw costs are coming down as volume increases and the technology improves. So I think that balance is shifting faster and faster. So you said you had a second one.
Yeah.
Can you do that quickly?
I mean, it's related to that. I mean, it seems to me there's a tendency to put the data centers in cold climates, and the renewable is going to work better in warm climates, at least solar, not wind. I don't know about wind. So you're sort of fighting an uphill battle there.
Yes and no. I mean, data centers, you want to put where the cost of cooling is low. Facebook's data center designs, we actually can cool quite cheaply in a very wide range of climates, basically anywhere where it's not really hot and really humid at the same time. So it can be hot but not humid, we're fine. But you're right that you know, the right place to put your data center, you have to look at what the renewable resources are there in that place. It might be wind, it might be solar, it might be geothermal. You have to look and see what's there. It's going to be different in different places.
Thank you.
Okay. One quick question here, and then I think we're going to have to wrap up.
It's kind of an elaboration of what he went, or an expansion of what he asked, but how have you dealt with customers where renewable energy really isn't available, where the shading profile might impact a solar farm, or with regards to wind, the wind probability distribution is poor? So how have some people overcome that?
So quick answer, which again would be great elaboration over a glass of wine over by the windows later. This is where a lot of the less direct investments, virtual power purchase agreements and other things come in. So there are companies who've decided for a variety of reasons that they would be well served by investing in capacity. It's just not going to be the capacity that directly powers them because they're just in the wrong place. So if they have that kind of motivation, we'll go there. If they don't, they're probably not going to do anything for the reasons you outlined.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got to wrap up. Any final thoughts from the two of you?
Well, just quickly, I think the collaboration with the utility actually allows more of this citing the renewables where it's needed and where it's most effective on the grid. So you know, if you're locked into doing something only on site, you have limited options. But if you could actually work in collaboration with the utility, it opens up a lot of these potential opportunities. So I'll be back there. Happy to talk about the buyer's principles and any other questions you guys have. And this has been fun.
Two last words. It's really hard and it's really happening. Both are true. So we absolutely can talk about barriers and things and why this is hard. That's sort of why we're here. But astonishing velocity off of a small base that really promises to go somewhere.
And I'll just close with something Hervé said to me last week since he had to step out. He said that we're soon going to reach the point where your CFO will no longer ask you, why in the world are you bringing me this deal? But will start to ask you, why are you waiting to bring me such a deal? And I think that tipping point is, if we haven't hit it, we're very close to it. So thank you all for your attention. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.